leave it in the past. This is the archive is all in present tense. Librarians turn slender shadows in the afternoon light, gathering materials along the ledge. 3 men exit a jeep on a hillside. Doors slam in unison. 2 orphans walk into a dance for soldiers. Wind winters down from the north. Concertina wire unspools like fat loops of cursive. I've always wanted a boyfriend like you. Language making it impossible for her to love me back, though no one could love me now. Preoccupied as I am by war, paging arrest records, letters, diaries, clippings in their acid-free envelopes. I sort through tea lights, radio crackles, paper fortune tellers predicting the man who will marry you, what house he will buy for you. Paper turning to snow in her hands, folding, unfolding. After the librarians bring the snow, I check if they are watching, then touch the jars to feel the cold of silence, of waiting. The men pass concertina wire hand to hand as trucks convey people up the mountain. One orphan creases his hat, the other smooths her pleats, practices American slang. A letter turns over to an empty verso, a blank my want tumbles into. The archive is full of blanks, so many the archivist come before dawn to catalog them and are still behind. Librarians bring everything I write on a call slip without judgment or warning. I write en masse. I write war bride. I write amnesty. I write savagery is the natural condition of the human race. I write I can't keep my men from the refugee women. I page dirt from the camp floor, blankets and hunger, sickness and sorrow. I could page his service records or the stories he told about how his commanders liked him so much they kept me from all that. I could page the women's voices in their velvet bags bound with strings. The archive is full of string, full of wire and casing and food stamp books and adoption records and wills and transfer requests. The archive is full of tanks and spears and muskets and porcelain and dollars and steamboats and axes and folly and fall, cataloged so I can page it all. I always look at this and then I forget what time I started. Okay, this is called The Archive is Full of Deferrals, and another archive that's been very, actually, Querying the Map, I think of as an archive, has been very influential to me, and it's interesting because it has this weird time lag, because they have to, I don't know if I could get like really nerdly technical, but when you submit an entry, it goes through a process where they read it first and like make sure that you're not doing the opposite of his intention and writing horrible homophobic things, but there's only one person. And so if you submit something, there's this really long temporal lag before it actually appears. So that's really interesting to me. But another archive that's been really important to me in my work is also in New York. It's the Lesbian Herstory Archives, which I love because their cataloging system is complete anarchy. like you can't find shit. And I love that because I'm not really looking for anything. But I am finding it. And this is called The Archive is Full of Deferrals. Today I request death sentences. The librarian accepts my stack of page slips, leads me to a table, asks me to don an apron and mask before wheeling in carts of lead boxes. Each sentence is about the size of an ear of corn, twice as heavy and smooth, graphite colored. They make me draw my shoulders back, grow a belly, walk like a general surveying lines of refugees, taste the iron of my promise. I check them against front pages, masked blur of a woman braced in a chair, hooded face of a boy unable to bow to the altar of bread and chewing gum, engraving of men hanging in a town square. A death sentence sparkles dusts onto the clippings. Somewhere in off-site storage, pardons and commutations, possibilities of parole are stacked like drawers in a mausoleum. Outside, light slides under field. Librarians wait. I page a box dated the day after a kid from Detroit joked with a chaplain in northern France. Librarians rush to the stacks. The box is weightless, empty, except for a glow that smells cool and wet, like the marathon station cement where my corsage drops its white flag. We convince some trucker to buy us beer and drink in the lot until our mouths taste like rotten wheat. Then a gray Chevy pulls in. My sister and her friends, all older, too old for the dance. They look like spring in sundresses and halters. We share our beer, and my sister's friend has silver earrings that sparkle to her bare shoulders. She leads me from the station's light. Her hand is cool and damp, and her breath bitter and warm. I breathe it in as long as I can before I know it's time. I have to kiss her. I do have copies of the book for sale. Sorry, that feels awkward. Okay, go away. Where's the table? So I can just put them and pretend like I don't care. Okay. This is called In the Archive of Possible Utterances. I know it's time. I have to ask the archivist about my grandfather laughing. My commanders liked me so much they kept me from all that. Women huddled on the mountain. Concertina wire re-spooled after the camp was cleared. Instead, I offer the verso of a note I never answered from a girl I met at a gas station who wanted someone to be nice to her and only knew the word boyfriend to ask for it. I offered the gravel driveway her brother dragged us down. My silence is the screwdriver I used to open the front of the archivist's throat, revealing a mouthpiece from a portable radio transmitter. When I press my mouth against it, I kiss my own ghosts and the echoes of all we never became. So when you publish a book, you get a lot of feedback from people. And a colleague told me that people aren't going to be interested in my work because it's about archives, and archives are dusty and musty. And I was like, ow, that can't be true. And then I realized I titled this poem TJ 1015.h66, which is Library of Congress cataloging conventions for solid materials processing. That's a subject heading in the Library of Congress. So I don't know, maybe they're right. So this is TJ 1015.h66. We are only pneumatic tubes shuttling information. Only the question information leaves, the shadow of something passing. Look up, empty sky. The question left by the buttermilk scar along a girl's knee, where nurses swabbed the wound free of gravel and sewed up her imagined future. We are only the question, when the fog lifts, will there be snow on the mountain? The question of the palm turned and not its meaning, plea, prayer, offering, or reaching to feel if snow is falling. Only the palm turned, waiting for someone to reach across the distance from bed to chair. Only the creak of the chair and the tick-tick of moons dropping from bag to tube. We are only the crunching of gravel as a car turns into the drive, headlights sweeping over two girls tangled in shadows. We are only the waiting for the car door to open, waiting like the rabbit waits in the light the motion detector clicked on. We are only the ruffle of fur above her heart as she waits for the dark so she can scatter. We are only the grip turning a girl's hand white as she yanks away in the light. Only the burn of nerves as the blood returns, the itch of it, hot as guilt. You could tell I was socialized female because the other reading, this guy read this poem about basketball, and he was like, basketball. He wasn't like, oh, maybe people won't like my basketball poem. and I didn't like his basketball poems. I had no idea what he was talking about. But it's similarly obscure, right? Because they have numbers like statistics and stuff. So I don't know. Whatever.
Too much lore.
Too much lore to basketball. I don't know. Is anyone a basketball fan? I don't mean to neg you. Yeah. That's okay.
This is a safe space.
The only thing I know about sports is that once the lesbians won the World Series.
Yeah, they did.
That was cool. There were lots of women on red carpets with blazers and no tops. Okay, I have two more. This is called Sometimes the Archive Sculpts Vermin from Marble. A librarian capsizes on my table, drunk on the dust of wine, accordion wheezing like a raccoon scissored in a trap. Papers scatter, music sours as they fall out of time. What are we celebrating? I ask another librarian at the front desk, picnic basket poised on their knees. They remind me to note my seat number on the page slip, though, as always, I'm the only one here. They bring me my box. I notice their palms are stained gray, remember the executions I paged earlier. People came from all over to watch, each hanging a festival, every electrocution a party. The Boys' Book of Adventure embossed on the The Boys' Book of Adventure embossed on the book's green leather cover. I finger the gold edges of its pages, then open to engravings of two grubby tomboys clambering over rocks. My sister crops a crawdaddy, knee skin raw. On the next page, we are playing war. I wear my grandfather's helmet, brandish a stick for a gun. I can't bring myself to turn the page, imagining the dresses and distance that came with puberty. In the parking lot, I look for the archivist, wanting to commiserate about the silliness of history. It's empty except for a possum lumbering across the asphalt, dragging its naked tail. Hey, I call, what does it all add up to? It freezes and flips over. Fleshy feet stretched to the sky, toothy mouth agape. I tow around the stiff form and get into my car, crank the heat, stretch my palms to the vents. My hands speckled with guilt from the book. With each opening, it must slough off some of its luster. I'm not a nerd. I realized I turned to this page and I made little cards from the card catalog. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to end with this, and I think queering the map is such a perfect example of how when I said archival documents are so full of longing, I find archival work can feel very erotic and very sensual, and it's like weird because you're also touching across time, and that is really exciting for me. Actually, I had this really weird moment. I was asked to participate in a workshop at Washington University's archives, and they have a large archive dedicated to the protest that happened there in 1968. And they're very proud of this collection. And so I went to this workshop and was looking at these materials, and the whole campus is surrounded by fences and barriers. And 9 people. Was it 9 or 11, Jack? Do you remember? 11 people. I can't remember how many people were arrested in the most recent protests. And I'm getting the numbers flipped because a professor had either 9 or 11 ribs broken in his arrest. He was a faculty observer. I mean, not that it's okay to break anyone's ribs, but it's interesting that their archives are like, look, 1968 was so great. They protested, they made change. I don't know. I don't know what it means. We're gonna have to archive these protests too, I think. This is called, in the end, the archive keeps its own counsel. I came to the archive looking for blame, to cut like a furrow. And instead, I am received, unbound and mended, laying on the archivist table, where they measure my ear, the circumference of a shadow. Like paper, skin absorbs all. Each tap of the service bell, every knuckle crushed into a fist, all the milkweed rolled between palms, silk unspooling. The archivist sweeps a cloth under the gully of my collarbone, thumbs my spine looking for give where it needs repair. They fold muslin under my neck, bolster tender joints, and tip open my jaw, lift my tongue to read the utterances lodged in my throat. For my entry, they weave my present into a description using a logic I can only submit to as we float in the archive's tank of dreams, bodies stitched together with a dash. Thank you so much.
I'm going to place.